Bitcoin dominance has to first go up, because it would imply Bitcoin going to an all-time high. So I don't think it makes sense for people to sit around and root for Bitcoin dominance to go down, right? If you truly want an alt season, then the only way it's going to happen is if Bitcoin USD goes to an all-time high in the next couple of months and Bitcoin dominance goes up with it. If both of those things happen, then I will even come out here and say that you could have an alt season, right? And that's saying a lot, because I mean, for the last 4 years, I said it's not, people are premature and that alts are going to keep going lower against Bitcoin. Base case for me is that Ethereum will go to all-time highs, but at the same time, there's a really high chance that it's going to lag Bitcoin for a few more weeks.
Bitcoin may already be at a crossroads. A well-known crypto analyst, Ben Cowen, pointed out that Bitcoin's climb near 126 can be read in two contrasting ways. The bearish interpretation based on ROI from the cycle low suggests the peak may already be in, implying little chance of a true all season. On the other hand, he emphasized that a more optimistic reading measuring peak to peak shows this cycle closely mirrors 2017, leaving room for another push higher into the fourth quarter. The difference, he explained, largely comes down to how the market defines the timing of the low. Cowen emphasized that for Bitcoin to extend higher, liquidity must rotate back into it, rather than scattering across altcoins. If that happens, Bitcoin could set new all-time highs and pull Ethereum upward as well. He pointed out that his base case is for ETH to reach new highs, but warned that unless ETH can hold above $5,000 for a sustained period, all season won't properly materialize. A quick spike followed by rejection like in the last cycle would not be enough to fuel broader altcoin strength. Cowen also stressed the importance of the 50-week moving average, noting that 2 weekly closes below it have always marked the end of prior bull markets. With that line only $10,000 under current price, it's the critical level to watch. His expectation remains that the cycle tops this quarter, followed by a 2026 bear market where Bitcoin and stablecoins are the only safe holds. Altcoins may run briefly into early 2026, but by spring, history shows they almost always collapse. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated. Thanks for watching.
Kind of got close to 130 already. I think what did we hit, like 126 or something?
Yeah.
I think there's like a scary chart and there's an optimistic chart. The scary chart is this one. This is the ROI from the low for Bitcoin compared to the last 2 cycles. Like, this is normally when it tops out in terms of ROI as measured from the low. But one of the reasons it looks like this is because in the 2013 cycle, the 2014 bear market actually lasted 1 month or a couple of weeks into 2015. So the low, instead of being in like a late 2014, is being measured from early 2015. So the pessimistic way to look at it, and if this way is correct, and I don't think anyone hopes that this way is correct, if this way is correct, then there is no alt season, right? Because it means the high is already in, and usually when the high is in, alt season then starts immediately, or at least within a few days. But a more optimistic way to look at it is to take the ROI from peak to peak and say, if you compared that to the 2017 cycle, it would still suggest that we could still have one more move up, kind of towards the end of the fourth quarter of the year. Now, and you can see structurally, like, these 2 cycles look really similar to each other, right? I mean, the downturn, you can see the low in 2015 happened after the low in 2022 in terms of like where in the cycle, and that's why when you measure it from the low, it looks different. But generally they increase together, and recently we've fallen off because of, we would expect, diminishing returns, right? So here's the thing. In order for Bitcoin to get this move higher, we need to see a liquidity rotation back into Bitcoin, right? We need to have a defensive rotation. We need for people to recognize that Bitcoin is the reason we're here and not all the other cryptocurrencies. And if they can do that, and if Bitcoin can go to a new all-time high, then it could theoretically lead to Ethereum going to all-time highs. My base case is that Ethereum will go to all-time highs. But here's the thing. There's a difference between Ethereum going to an all-time high and it going to an all-time high that it can actually hold for more than a few minutes, right? If Ethereum were to just go up to 5K and sweep the high again and then drop again like it did last time, that's not going to lead you to an alt season, right? In order to get an alt season, you have to have Ethereum hold 5K. But again, you can't have that unless Bitcoin is going up a lot more. and liquidity is flowing back to the king. So that's how I see this whole thing playing out. Like right now, we're at a very precarious position for Bitcoin. And what I'm looking for, so there's no ambiguity, is the cycle. There's still a reason to be optimistic as long as Bitcoin is holding above the 50-week moving average. Every prior bull market for Bitcoin, when you had 2 weekly closes below the 50-week moving average, the cycle was over, right? That was it for the cycle. So that's what I'm looking for. If you get a weekly close, 2 weekly closes, right now it's about 102K, so about $10,000 lower than where we currently are. Weekly closes below that, I think you just have to cut your losses and say, all right, well, the cycle's over. Too bad, that's all we got. As long as we stay above the 50-week moving average, then there still is reason to be optimistic. The good thing for us this cycle is that a lot of times, the 50-week moving average is pretty far down from the all-time high, but right now it's only $10,000 below where we currently are, right? Like, so if in a worst case scenario, there should be confirmation of it at not too much of a lower price, theoretically allowing people to kind of get out and salvage as much as their portfolio as they can. Because I do think the top will be in the fourth quarter. Okay. And I think that next year will be a bear market. And that is something I've continued to be somewhat deterministic about. Top is this quarter, next year is a bear market. If you want to hold anything in the bear market in crypto, besides stables, right, it should be Bitcoin. I would certainly get out of altcoins for 2026. If it plays out like the 2017 cycle, then you might see altcoins run into really early 2026, like the first week or two. But I would not, I certainly would not be holding altcoins, March of 2026, because usually by that point in the cycle, they're doing nothing but getting wrecked. So what I'm looking for Ethereum to show strength, to rally to an all-time high, and for a rotation out of altcoins back into Bitcoin, right? So you can have Bitcoin and Ethereum kind of going up simultaneously, kind of like the blue chips, right? And then the other aspects of the market will likely continue to lag until Ethereum can hold 5K.
Ben Cowen explained that market cycles often unfold with Bitcoin taking the lead, especially after a major correction in altcoins. Traders burned in alts tend to move defensively into Bitcoin, giving it room to push toward new highs while Ethereum consolidates at support. He compared this behavior to past cycles where Ethereum spent weeks lagging before eventually catching up and breaking higher. In his view, Ethereum is still structurally strong, but it needs more time to confirm its base before showing the kind of momentum traders are waiting for. At the same time, Cowen highlighted that the bigger narrative is still about Bitcoin dominance. He argued that dominance rising isn't a sign of weakness for the market, but rather a necessary step before altcoins can have their moment. Without Bitcoin first reaching new highs, an all season is impossible. For Cowen, the signal to shift outlook will come only if Bitcoin makes a strong move higher, Ethereum confirms $5,000, and market sentiment improves. Until then, he sees Bitcoin as the primary asset worth holding in a cautious environment where capital preservation and positioning matter most. Let's get back to the interview.
I drew out a time ago, but essentially, we get these 30% drops to the bull market square fan in September, October, post-halving years, and then what typically follows is the final rally into the market cycle. That's what I'm expecting. I'm just kind of expecting a final rally into the market for Ethereum, where it holds support at the bull market support band. I could be wrong, but I think that the low for Ethereum here is already in. Like, that doesn't mean it can't have some residual drops where it finds support here at the 21-week EMA. Like, if you go back to the 2017 cycle, you can see that's kind of what happened in the month of October, right? Ethereum had this drop back down, and then it just kind of stayed there throughout the rest of October, and it didn't really start moving until mid-November. So, and again, while Ethereum was going sideways, Bitcoin was actually going to all-time highs during that time. And then that was how Bitcoin was able to go up. Bitcoin was skyrocketing, and everything else was just going sideways, and not really moving a whole lot. So, that if this defensive rotation persists, and we can get it on a Bitcoin rally, there's a really good chance that the altcoin market will not immediately
because think about how many people just got altcoins, right?
There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be a little nervous to throw a lot of money at all. When they're worried, they're just going to get wiped out again. So when that happens, you get these defensive rotations, and that's why I'm saying now, like, I think Ethereum's going to go to all-time highs. I do. I'll be the first to let people know if I think I'm wrong on that. But I think it will. I think that, right now it's going through this process of trying to confirm this level as support. Kind of like it did in 2021, right here. You can see there's a couple wicks down in September of that year, maybe early October, and then it gets same thing in 2017, where you had it even into early November. So base case for me is that Ethereum will go to all-time highs. But at the same time, there's a really high chance going to lag for a few more weeks. If all Bitcoin pairs were to go, stay down here at the range lows on a Bitcoin dump and not a Bitcoin rally, then you're not going to get an alt, right? Like in 2019, when all Bitcoin pairs went to the range lows, you did not get an alt season after it, but it was because it was happening on a Bitcoin dump, not a Bitcoin rally. So in order to have an alt season, you have to have a Bitcoin rally first, where dominance goes to all-time highs. But because we cannot know for a fact that it's a Bitcoin rally, that it happens, not a Bitcoin dump, the best thing to hold is still Bitcoin. Because if it's a Bitcoin rally, you're going to outperform alts like crazy. If it's a Bitcoin dump, like, yeah, maybe Bitcoin dumps another 10% or something in the short term. If it goes to the 50-week moving average, altcoins in that scenario would probably drop like another 50%. Kind of like they did last Friday. So I think none of us can possibly know the ultimate outcome here for Bitcoin. I mean, obviously we all hope that it goes to an all-time high. Like, who wants it to drop? Who wants it to drop? Like, I would go to 140K, 150K, even higher, right? Who doesn't want to get rich holding an asset like Bitcoin? But the reason it makes it not to hold altcoins is because the direction of the altcoin market after they were devalued against Bitcoin simply depends on Bitcoin's USD now until say early November. If it's a dump, there's no alt season. If it's a rally, there could absolutely be an alt season. But again, the way you preserve the Satoshi value right now is to hold Bitcoin. The reason I say 5K for Ethereum is because that would reflect an all-time high. We need a 5K ETH for Ethereum to get an all-time high. A lot of these major moves in the markets before, like the quote-unquote alt season, typically happen after Ethereum goes to all-time highs, not before. So you could argue that one of the reasons altcoins have lagged so much this cycle is because, Ethereum only just hit an all-time high back in August, right? But normally the August high is a local top that then leads to a local low in September or early October. So again, in order to get the rally to 5K, Bitcoin has to go up. In order to get all season, Ethereum has to go to 5K. So when you back out that entire process, in order to have alt season, Bitcoin dominance has to first go up, because it would imply Bitcoin going to an all-time high. So I don't think it makes sense for people to sit around and root for Bitcoin dominance to go down. If you truly want an alt season, then the only way it's going to happen is if Bitcoin USD goes to an all-time high in the next couple of months, Bitcoin dominance goes up. If both of those things happen, then I will even come and say that you could have it all. Right, and that's saying a lot. Because the last 4 years, it's not premature and that all lower against Bitcoin, and they just did, right? And they just did, right? On Friday, they put in a new low, and again, once again, everyone's like, well, no, that's now, and it can't go lower. But they've been saying it for 4 years. So again, when you back out everything, in order for people to get what they want, for alts to rally against Bitcoin, we first have to see liquidity returns.
The market structure continues to reflect a recurring pattern where Bitcoin becomes the primary driver of momentum while altcoins move more slowly. Investors still wary from recent losses are rotating defensively into Bitcoin, creating conditions for it to rally while Ethereum and others consolidate at critical support levels. Historical cycles suggest this lag is temporary, with Ethereum eventually catching up once Bitcoin establishes new highs. Broader participation across altcoins, however, remains dependent on Bitcoin first leading the charge, as an all-season cannot emerge without its dominance rising in the early stages. For now, the landscape favors Bitcoin as the central asset, while altcoins prepare quietly in the background for a potential shift once market confidence returns. If all-season historically only follows Bitcoin's rally to new highs, what signals should traders watch for to confirm when Ethereum and other altcoins are finally ready to outperform? So stay tuned for clear data-driven insights into the financial system. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss our weekly updates. Thank you for your continued support, and we hope you enjoy the video.